most foods live on a countdown clock. The moment they're harvested, cooked, or packaged, the clock starts ticking. Milk turns sour. Meat breaks down. Fruit collapses into rot. Even foods designed to last eventually surrender to time. Yet there is one substance that seems to exist outside that rule. A food that refuses to decay. A food that archaeologists have pulled from ancient tombs and still recognized as edible. Honey does not mold, does not rot, and does not spoil in any way we normally understand. This isn't a marketing trick or a modern scientific hack. It's something humans noticed thousands of years ago and still struggle to fully appreciate today. Honey quietly defies time, and once you understand why, you begin to see it not just as food, but as one of nature's most perfectly engineered substances. To understand why honey never spoils, you first have to understand why food spoils at all. Spoilage isn't magic. It's biology. Tiny organisms all around us are constantly looking for places to live and multiply. Bacteria, yeast, and mold survive by feeding on nutrients, breaking them down, and releasing waste products. Those waste products are what we recognize as sour smells, slimy textures, and unpleasant tastes. For these microorganisms to thrive, they need a few basic things. They need nutrients, which most foods have plenty of. They need oxygen, which is everywhere. And most importantly, they need water. Take away usable water, and life slows down or stops entirely. This is where honey begins to separate itself from almost everything else we eat. Honey looks like a liquid, but chemically, it behaves more like a solid trap. On average, honey contains only about 17 to 18% water. That number might not sound extreme, but it places honey far outside the safe zone for microbial growth. What matters isn't just how much water is present, but how available that water is. In honey, water molecules are tightly bound to sugar molecules. Microorganisms cannot access them. Scientists describe this as low water activity. Even if bacteria land in honey, they cannot pull enough water into their cells to survive. Instead, water is pulled out of them. Their cell walls collapse. Their internal processes shut down. They don't multiply. They don't adapt. They simply die. Honey doesn't kill microbes aggressively. It quietly starves them of the one thing they can't live without. This dehydration effect happens through a process called osmosis. Inside a microbial cell, there is more water than there is in the surrounding honey. Nature tries to balance that difference. Water flows out of the cell and into the honey. As the cell shrinks, its internal machinery becomes damaged beyond repair. Proteins unfold. Enzymes stop working. DNA replication fails. In most foods, microbes multiply until spoilage is obvious. In honey, they never get that chance. The environment is hostile from the moment they arrive. But low water alone doesn't fully explain honey's resistance to decay. Plenty of foods are dried, yet they still spoil over time. Honey adds another layer of protection: acidity. Most bacteria prefer neutral environments, hovering around a pH of 7. Honey lives far below that comfort zone. Its pH typically ranges between 3.2 and 4.5, similar to vinegar or citrus juice. This acidic environment disrupts microbial metabolism. Enzymes that bacteria rely on to digest food and produce energy simply don't function properly. Chemical reactions slow to a crawl or stop altogether. Even if a microbe somehow survives the dehydration caused by honey's sugars, the acidity creates a second barrier that prevents growth. This acidity is not accidental. It is the result of a complex transformation that begins inside the bee. What bees collect from flowers is not honey. It is nectar, a thin, watery solution of sugars that would spoil quickly if left alone. Bees act as living processes. Inside the bee's body, nectar is mixed with enzymes that fundamentally change its chemistry. One of the most important of these enzymes is glucose oxidase. When nectar is exposed to oxygen inside the honeycomb, this enzyme triggers a reaction that produces gluconic acid and hydrogen peroxide. Gluconic acid lowers the pH of honey, strengthening its acidity. Hydrogen peroxide acts as a natural antiseptic, capable of killing bacteria in small amounts. The presence of hydrogen peroxide in honey is particularly fascinating. It exists in concentrations low enough to be safe for consumption, but high enough to damage bacterial cells. This is why honey has been used for centuries as a wound treatment. When applied to a wound, honey creates an environment that inhibits infection while supporting healing. Modern medicine has rediscovered this property, especially in medical-grade honeys used in hospitals. The same chemistry that protects honey on a shelf also protects living tissue. Bees don't stop there. Once nectar is deposited into honeycomb cells, bees actively reduce its water content. They fan their wings, creating airflow that evaporates excess moisture. Over time, nectar thickens, sugars concentrate, and water levels drop to the point where spoilage becomes nearly impossible. When the honey reaches the right consistency, bees seal the cell with a wax cap. This final step locks out external moisture and contaminants. The honey is preserved, not for humans, but as a long-term food supply for the hive. It is designed to last through seasons when flowers disappear and resources become scarce. Sugar often gets blamed for decay, but in high concentrations, it becomes a powerful preservative. Humans have used this principle for thousands of years. Jams, jellies, candied fruits, and syrups all rely on sugar to extend shelf life. Honey takes this concept to its extreme. Roughly 80% of honey is made up of sugars, primarily glucose and fructose. This concentration creates intense osmotic pressure. Any microorganism that attempts to grow in honey is immediately subjected to cellular stress. Water rushes out. Internal balance collapses. Reproduction becomes impossible. This process, known as plasmolysis, is devastating to microbial life. This is why honey can sit exposed for long periods without visible spoilage. However, honey's immortality is not absolute. It depends on how it is treated. Honey is hygroscopic, meaning it absorbs moisture from the air. If left uncovered in a humid environment, honey can slowly pull in water. As water content rises, the balance shifts. Fermentation can occur, particularly from wild yeasts that are more tolerant of sugar. This is why proper storage matters. Kept sealed, dry, and away from excessive heat, honey remains stable for extraordinary lengths of time. The idea that honey lasts forever gained attention when archaeologists discovered jars of honey in ancient Egyptian tombs. These jars were thousands of years old, yet the honey inside had not rotted. While its texture and aroma may have changed slightly, it remained recognizable and safe. The sealed environment of the tomb prevented moisture from entering, preserving the honey exactly as it was meant to be preserved. This discovery wasn't shocking to ancient civilizations. Egyptians already knew honey lasted. They used it in food, medicine, religious rituals, and embalming practices. To them, honey symbolized purity and eternity. Modern food labels often list expiration dates on honey, but these dates are about quality, not safety. Over time, honey may crystallize, darken, or develop different flavor notes. These changes are natural and reversible. Gently warming crystallized honey returns it to a liquid state without harming its structure. What doesn't happen is spoilage in the traditional sense. Honey does not become toxic or dangerous simply because time has passed. Its chemistry remains fundamentally stable. One of the most remarkable aspects of honey's longevity is that it achieves this without human design. No preservatives are added. No industrial processes are required. Bees, guided by instinct and evolution, produce a food that resists decay better than most man-made products. Every element plays a role. Low water content deprives microbes of life. Acidity disrupts their chemistry. Enzymes introduce natural antiseptics. High sugar concentrations lock away usable moisture. Even the structure of honeycomb and wax sealing contributes to preservation. It is a system refined over millions of years. In a way, honey is time-made edible. It carries the biology of flowers, the labor of bees, and the chemistry of preservation all in one substance. When you open a jar of honey, you are tasting something that does not fear the passage of years. In a world obsessed with freshness and expiration dates, honey stands apart. It reminds us that some of nature's solutions are so efficient they appear almost magical. Honey doesn't last forever by accident. It lasts because everything about it is designed to endure. Thank you for watching. If you have an idea for a future video, drop it in the comments and we'll be sure to credit you if it becomes an episode. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more stories hidden in the everyday objects we rarely stop to question.